The night Beijing decided to whisper instead of roar. A strange calm settled over the city. It was the kind of night where the moon glowed too brightly, as if excited, anticipating something extraordinary. No one knew it yet, but two of the biggest stars in China were about to rewrite the meaning of destiny. Wang Yibo stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling windows of a penthouse overlooking the river. His hands, usually steady from years of dancing, acting, and riding motorcycles, trembled slightly. In the reflection of the glass, he could see his own face, sharper than the skyline behind him, but softened by an emotion few had ever witnessed from him. Tonight wasn't about the stage, the cameras, or the screaming fans. Tonight was about Xiao Zhan, and a question that had lived in Yibo's heart far longer than he had ever admitted. Behind him, the soft sound of the elevator chimed. It opened with a quiet ding, and air shifted, the unmistakable presence of someone who carried both light and gravity when he walked. "Abba," Xiao Zhan said, his voice warm, familiar, and edged with curiosity. "Why did you ask me to come here so late? And why does the place look like a movie set?" Yibo didn't answer at first. Instead, he turned around slowly, letting Xiao Zhan absorb the scene. Every light in the penthouse had been dimmed except for a pathway of small white lanterns that flickered like stars fallen to the floor. The room smelled faintly of jasmine and sandalwood, Xiao Zhan's favorite scents. Soft music played, barely above a whisper, yet powerful enough to stir something deep in both of them. Xiao Zhan's brows lifted, suspicion and awe tangled in his expression. "Are you filming something?" he asked. Yibo shook his head, eyes fixed on him as if afraid the moment might shatter if he blinked too long. "No cameras," he said. "Just us." Xiao Zhan stepped forward slowly, taking in the scene with cautious wonder. "This is beautiful." "Good," Yibo said under his breath. "It has to be perfect." A quiet laugh escaped Xiao Zhan. "Perfect for what?" Yibo didn't answer. Not yet. Instead, he reached behind him, switched off the last remaining overhead light, and suddenly the entire room came alive. The walls lit up with projections, memories. Them laughing backstage during the Untamed. Them practicing choreographies, messing up and bumping into each other. Them eating late-night noodles during their busiest filming schedules. Them riding together in silence through city streets where no one recognized them. Them comforting each other on nights when fame felt like a storm they hadn't asked for. Xiao Zhan froze as the memories wrapped around him like a warm wind. His throat tightened, and he could feel the sting of emotion rising faster than he could control it. "You kept all these?" he whispered. "Every moment," Yibo said, "because every moment changed me." The words hit Xiao Zhan harder than expected. He turned slowly to face Yibo fully, heart pounding. "Yibo, what's happening?" Yibo's eyes softened. "Something I should have done a long time ago." He stepped forward, closing the distance between them. Rain began tapping gently on the glass, like nature itself had paused to watch. "When we met," Yibo said, voice low and steady, "I didn't know someone could walk into my life and rearrange the way I breathe." Xiao Zhan's breath caught. "You brought color," Yibo continued. "You brought peace. You brought fire. You brought everything I didn't know I was missing." Xiao Zhan swallowed hard, trying to steady himself. "Yibo, I know what people say," Yibo said, cutting him off gently. "I know the world watches us, judges us, loves us, fights over us." He took another step. "But this," he placed a hand over his own chest, "has nothing to do with them." Xiao Zhan's eyes glistened. "What are you saying?" Yibo exhaled shakily. "I'm saying I choose you. Not as a co-star, not as a friend, not as someone fate threw into my life." He reached into his pocket. "But as the person I want to walk every road with." Xiao Zhan felt his knees weaken. "Yibo." And then it happened. Yibo dropped down on one knee. The world went silent. The rain stopped. The music faded. Even the city outside felt like it was holding its breath. Xiao Zhan stared down at him, as if trying to confirm the moment was real. In Yibo's hand was a simple ring, silver, elegant, but nothing flashy. It wasn't about the price. It wasn't about the show. It was about meaning. Engraved on the inside was a single word: home, because that's what Xiao Zhan had become to him. Xiao Zhan, Yibo began, voice trembling now. You're the only person I've ever trusted with the real me. The parts no one sees. The parts one didn't even understand myself. A tear slid down Xiao Zhan's cheek. I don't know what the future holds, Yibo continued. I don't know what storms we'll face. But I know one thing with absolute certainty. He looked up, eyes burning with sincerity. I want to face every one of them with you. Will you marry me? The silence that followed was the loudest sound Xiao Zhan had ever heard. His heart beat so violently he thought it might escape his chest. His hands shook. His breath faltered. He had imagined love. He had imagined partnership. He had imagined choices. But he had never imagined this moment. This breathtaking, impossible, world-stopping moment. Xiao Zhan dropped to his knees too. Yibo, look at me, he whispered. Yibo lifted his gaze. You're not the only one who kept memories, Xiao Zhan said, voice cracking. I've kept every laugh, every fight, every stupid argument over takeout, every silent moment on the balcony, every feeling I tried to hide. His hand cupped Yibo's cheek. You think you choose me? Xiao Zhan said, tears spilling freely now. I've been choosing you long before tonight. Yibo's breath hitched. So yes, Xiao Zhan whispered. Yes, Wang Yibo. I'll marry you. I'll face the storms. I'll face the world. I'll face everything. As long as I'm facing it with you. The relief that washed through Yibo was overwhelming. He slipped the ring onto Xiao Zhan's finger with trembling care. Xiao Zhan laughed through his tears, unable to stop smiling. The two leaned into each other, foreheads touching, breaths mixing, two souls finally aligned. But the night wasn't done surprising them. Suddenly, the quiet apartment brightened. Not with lights, but with fireworks bursting across the sky. Xiao Zhan gasped, turning toward the windows. Yibo, did you? No, Yibo said with a stunned laugh. But I'll take credit. Dozens of fireworks lit up the river, painting colors across the sky like a celebration held by the universe itself. Red, gold, violet, silver, each one shimmering like a blessing. Xiao Zhan's eyes widened. This feels unreal. Then it's perfect, Yibo whispered, pulling him close. They stood wrapped in each other's arms, watching as the explosions reflected in their eyes. Every burst echoed the promise they had just made, a promise that would change everything. When the fireworks faded, they returned to the middle of the lantern-lit room. Yibo picked up a small remote and clicked it. New projections appeared, this time not memories, but dreams, travel destinations they had whispered about at 3 a.m., a little house in the mountains they had joked about owning one day, a garden, a dog, quiet mornings, soft nights, a life. Xiao Zhan covered his mouth, overwhelmed. You planned all of this? Not just tonight, Yibo said. I've been planning our future for a long time. The room was still glowing with the last fading sparks of fireworks when Xiao Zhan finally found his voice again. His heart hadn't stopped racing since the moment Wang Yibo's knee touched the ground, since the moment that silver ring slid onto his finger, sealing a promise he never imagined would be spoken out loud. But now, as silence returned and the world outside calmed, something new, something powerful, filled the air between them. It was the sound of two souls realizing they had crossed a point of no return. Xiao Zhan looked at Yibo, truly looked at him, and saw a softness in his eyes that few ever got to witness. The confident actor, the fearless dancer, the cool-as-ice motorcyclist. None of those versions of Yibo were here right now. Instead, there stood a man completely open, vulnerable, and overflowing with emotions he had kept locked away for far too long. You know, Xiao Zhan said quietly, brushing a thumb across the ring now resting on his finger. I always thought you'd be the last person to make a grand gesture like this. Yibo smirked faintly. I told myself I'd never do something dramatic like other people. But then it's you. His voice softened. You make me want to do things I wouldn't normally do. Xiao Zhan's chest tightened with warmth. He stepped closer, so close he could feel the heat radiating from Yibo's skin. You didn't just do something dramatic, Xiao Zhan whispered. You did something unforgettable. Yibo lowered his gaze shyly. Shy, something so rare from him that it made Xiao Zhan's heart flip. I wanted tonight to be the kind of memory you couldn't describe in words, he admitted. Something only we could feel. Xiao Zhan reached out and lifted Yibo's chin gently. I feel it, he said. Every part of it. Then he took Yibo's hand and placed it over his chest. Do you feel this? Xiao Zhan asked, his heartbeat racing wildly beneath Yibo's palm. Yibo swallowed hard. I do. That's what you've done to me tonight. Yibo exhaled shakily, emotion flashing across his features. But the night wasn't done deepening. A sudden gust of wind blew in as Xiao Zhan slid open the balcony doors. The city lights sparkled across the water like diamonds scattered across a dark velvet surface. The wind carried the scent of rain, fresh and cold, mixing with the warmth of the lantern-lit room behind them. Yibo followed him out, and suddenly the world felt too big and too small all at once. Big because the future stretched out like a vast unknown, small because the only thing that truly mattered was standing right in front of him. Can I ask you something? Xiao Zhan said, leaning against the balcony railing. Anything. When did you know? Xiao Zhan's voice was soft, but trembling with sincerity. When did you know you wanted this? Yibo took a moment, eyes drifting out toward the shimmering cityscape. The night you showed up at my place after filming, Yibo said. You were tired, drained. You tried to smile and pretend everything was fine, but I could see how much pressure you were under. Xiao Zhan's breath caught. He remembered that night, the exhaustion, the frustration, the way he had tried to hide how overwhelmed he was. You sat on my couch, Yibo continued, and you didn't say a word. But your shoulders, they were shaking. You were trying so hard not to break. Yibo's voice cracked slightly. I sat next to you. I didn't ask what was wrong. I didn't push you to explain. I just put my hand on yours. And that moment, just sitting in silence with you, it felt like something clicked in my heart. Xiao Zhan blinked rapidly, overwhelmed. I realized I wanted to be the person you could fall apart with, Yibo said. The person who'd sit with you in silence and make you feel safe. I realized you weren't just someone in my life. You were the person I wanted to build a life with. A tear escaped Xiao Zhan's eye before he could stop it. And from that night on, Yibo added, every day, every moment, I kept falling for you a little more. Xiao Zhan covered his mouth, breath trembling. The body whispered, why didn't you tell me? Because you're too important, Yibo said honestly. I didn't want to risk losing what we already had. Xiao Zhan reached for him, pulling him closer until their foreheads touched again. You didn't risk anything, Xiao Zhan whispered. You gave us everything. Yibo's arms wrapped around him, holding him firmly, as though afraid the wind might steal him away if he let go. For a long time, they just held each other, two hearts beating in sync under the expanse of the moonlit sky. When they finally pulled away, Xiao Zhan brushed his fingers along Yibo's jaw, admiring him in the dim glow of the city lights. So, Xiao Zhan said with a small smile, we're really doing this? Yibo nodded slowly. We are. No turning back. Never. Xiao Zhan exhaled a shaky laugh. Good, because I don't want to imagine a future without you. Yibo leaned in, kissing him softly, slow, warm, and full of promise. A kiss that tasted like beginnings, like destiny, like everything they had been too afraid to acknowledge until now. When they separated, the air felt electric. What now? Xiao Zhan asked. Yibo grinned. Now, we enjoy the moment. Just us. No cameras, no crowds. Xiao Zhan nodded, eyes glowing with affection. Just us. They walked back inside, hand in hand, moving slowly along the path of lanterns. With every step, Xiao Zhan felt the weight of the world lift from his shoulders and replaced with something far lighter. Hope. Yibo stopped near the projector wall, replaying one of their earliest memories. Xiao Zhan laughed, covering his face. Oh no, not that one. Look how awkward I looked. You look perfect, Yibo said. I looked like a confused puppy. My confused puppy. Xiao Zhan shoved him playfully, laughing. Don't say it like that. Yibo caught his hand. Get used to it. I'm engaged now. I get to call you anything I want. Xiao Zhan's heart fluttered. Engaged. The word echoed in his mind like a melody. They settled on the floor among the lanterns, leaning against each other as memory after memory played on the walls. The warm light flickered over their faces, illuminating the future they were about to walk into. A future they were choosing together. As the night stretched on, Xiao Zhan rested his head on Yibo's shoulder, eyes growing heavy. "Yibo," he murmured. Thank you. For tonight. For everything." Yibo kissed the top of his head. "Thank you for saying yes." The room fell silent except for their steady breathing, the soft glow of lanterns fading into the first hints of dawn. Two hearts, one promise, one beginning, and the world still completely unaware of the love story unfolding above it.